Hey, welcome back to the 2024 Bandrew's Favorite Media of the Year, Bandrew Says podcast episode. I'm sure you could guess by the tone of my voice and the music going on in the background that things aren't as usual. I unfortunately have to share some bad news with you, and let me remove my hat for this because this is serious. This is no joking matter. I got a call from the hospital this morning, and it turns out that Frosty's situation has taken a serious turn for the worse, and it is now terminal. And I got a call from him afterwards, and he just said, "Andrew, please, end the suffering. Existence is pain. Release me from this torture that is this mortal coil." And I had to explain to him, I'm sorry, I'm not able to do that. That would be medically assisted suicide or murder, and I'm not trying to catch a case. So, that's the news. And the important thing to take away from this is that I think I'm funny. Nobody else does, but I think I'm funny. And the real reason why I am doing this is, okay, we are recording, is I had to make some backing tracks for the podcastage video that's coming up this week. And I thought it was hilarious to just take and butcher Christmas carols. The songs that are in the podcastage video are much more nightmarish. They sound like an evil circus. They just sound atonal and disturbing and unsettling. And this morning I thought, it'll be funny to not have an uplifting, upbeat Christmas-style song for the BSP. What would it be like if Frosty was miserable, depressed, and was begging for the sun because he wants to end it all? So that's where we got where we are. And again, the important thing is, I think I'm funny. I don't care if you enjoyed that or not. That was fun. I have fun arranging that and thinking, how could we make Frosty the Snowman miserable? A solo soft piano and a minor key. It's as simple as that. Now let me don my Santa cap, even though I know it makes me look like a complete fool, but it is tradition now. I will pull out my physical notes, which I did take, so you will hear rustling the entire episode. And now let's discuss my favorite media of 2024 after I take a water break. Let's start with the best podcasts of 2024, according to me. There is no such thing as the best podcasts of the year, so this is just my opinion. I want to point out all the shows from prior years are still on there. I listen to the majority of them. They are still great. I still recommend them. And obviously, I need to include all the Geeks Rising podcasts like the Sound Speeds podcast because this show is a member of the Geeks Rising podcast network. But this year has really been a renaissance, a rediscovery, let's go with that, of comedy podcasts for me. Back in 2010, 2011, when I really got into podcasting, it was because I came across comedy shows and I just fell in love with it because I'm stressed a lot. I have a stressful job, and having something that makes me giggle, releases endorphins, and makes me less anxious, makes the stress seem a little bit more bearable. But over the last couple of years, I kind of stopped listening to a lot of comedy because most of it to me started to seem a bit stale. A lot of it seemed a bit preachy, and a lot of it started to shove political thoughts and opinions and ideas down people's throats. And I get it. That's your prerogative. It's your platform. Do with it whatever you want. But I just lost interest. I was going to them to laugh, not have somebody tell me what political party to vote for or what to believe in. Frankly, I don't care. I don't care. It's your opinion, more power to you, but not my cup of tea, not why I was there. So I stopped listening. But this year I found a few that just made me laugh again. And number one for me, or number two, because we're going in reverse order, is Story Wars, which is a newer show. This is from Gas Digital Media. It is hosted by Big J. Okerson and Louis J. Gomez, who are also hosts of the Legion of Skanks. Haven't listened to that show before, but this is a game show style podcast. So on the panel, there are 5 people, the 2 hosts, and then 3 additional comedians, and they all submit a handful of stories on a specific topic, and then a narrator will randomize them and read 8 stories, and then they have to decide whose story it is, depending on who wins or who selects the right person, depending on whose story it is. I'm terrible at explaining it. And if you watch the show, that's also kind of a recurring bit. They are terrible at explaining it as well, but they are getting better, and it is really simple once you listen to it. And it is just a really fun show. It's simple, but these comedians know how to write a funny story. It's almost as though that's what they do for their job. Make stories funny. And then they share them. And they all seem to have lived very interesting lives that I have zero desire to experience. And that makes it more fun for me because I don't have to get arrested. I don't have to use substances or anything. I can just drink my cup of coffee and giggle and not have to worry about any of the negative repercussions from living these fast lifestyles. So that is one that I recommend, and it's one of the 2 that I will watch as soon as I see a new live episode go up. I don't really listen to podcasts as much because everything has been so busy, but that is one of them that I just, whenever I see a new episode, click play, laugh, enjoy it. And number 1 for me is a show that I used to listen to back in 2018, 2019, and then lost a bit of interest in. It's Kill Tony. The reason I lost interest is back then, this is when I think they were still in LA. Some of the episodes were really rough to get through. They didn't have great comedians all the time. Of course, it's randomized. It's just people being pulled out of a bucket to do a minute of stand-up on the show. But they weren't as diligent about passing on people who weren't really adding to the show. So if an interview was painful and awkward and just suffering, sometimes they would hang on it a bit too long, and it made the episodes not the most fun all the time. So I stopped listening for a while, and it can also be perceived as a kind of mean show because the panel can be very rude, very, not necessarily degrading, but very harsh towards the comedians who come up and do a minute. So that can be off-putting if you're not in the right mindset for it. But overall, I think it is a really good show, and they do actually intend or want to help comedians improve, and they do actually offer good advice sometimes. As somebody who's not a comedian at all, I don't do stand. It seems to me as just a passive listener to be good advice. But I came back to it this year, and they have really upped their game in terms of the production, in terms of the flow. They seem to have the regulars who are really talented now come up every single week, and it keeps the show going. It ensures that at least 2 to 3 times each episode, you're going to get a good set of comedy. The panels are continuing to be great. One of the best episodes was the Donald Trump, Joe Biden episode, which it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. They have just improved so much. So if you are at all into stand-up comedy, I highly recommend checking out Kill Tony. It is just hilarious and really great stuff. And I continue to enjoy it. Those are my favorite podcasts of the year. Let's go to Best Music of 2024. According to the Gospel of Bandrew, that's blasphemous. Here's the music that I like the most. Reverse chronological order, not chronological, reverse order from worst to best, least favorite to favorite. They're all great. Muse. There's no new music. There's no specific album. Just all of them. I grabbed a couple of CDs. I don't know where I put them in this snowstorm. Let me see if I can find them as I bump microphones. I tried to think of my favorite Muse albums, and gosh, this is hard because I can put on their compilation, 6 studio albums, listen to it all the way through. It's perfect. I am going to say, oh gosh, this is difficult. Number 3 is likely Black Holes and Revelations. This album is outstanding. Take a Bow is one of the best opening songs on any album. This also has, what is it, Knights of Sidonia. It has Supermassive Black Hole. Oh gosh, but Absolution has so many good songs as well, and their earlier stuff is so much moodier and depressing. They're also... Number 3 is Everything Else. Number 2 is Resistance. I think this is probably their biggest album, but my gosh, this is just 1984 with modern rock music. It is so good. Absolutely love it. And number 1 for me, surprisingly, is a newer album, which almost never happens, Simulation Theory. Really incredible stuff. So number 3 for me is Muse. The best description I have heard of them is, what is it? I love you, but the government is watching us, something like that. That's pretty much every Muse song. I love you so much, I wish we could be together, but the government is watching us and wants me dead. That's Muse in a nutshell. I think they are one of the best working bands right now. If you don't listen to them as I go off, hey, we're just testing the microphone. If you don't listen to them, go check them out. Number 2 is 4 Year Strong, Analysis Paralysis, a new album from 4 Year Strong that came out in 2024. The 3 songs that launched this album, some of the most solid work they have ever done. They have really leaned into the heavier stuff, a lot more Every Time I Die almost, like really aggressive rock, which I dig, a lot more aggressive vocals, but they still maintain their really catchy melodies. They're really good guitar playing. They are just incredibly talented. The 3 songs were, where did I write them down? Uncooked, Daddy of Mine, and Dead End Friend. Not only are the songs good, not only is the riffs good, are the riffs good, not only are my grammar okay, super duper, but the production on this album is bonkers. Mainly the guitar tone. The guitar tones on this, they may be some of my favorite guitar tones because they are so gosh darn heavy. They have so much grit to them, but they aren't overly sharp and sizzly. They are just huge. The guitar tones are up there with, I would say, a Muse album. They are up there with Every Time I Die. They are some of the most incredible heavier guitar tones that I have ever heard. So 4 Year Strong, Analysis Paralysis. And number 1 for me is Bayside, the entire discography, because I discovered them this year and they kind of broke my brain. Oh gosh, this is so good. Why haven't I listened to this before? Oh, they're so sad. This is great. But the one that I am picking is their latest album that came out in 2024, There Are Worse Things Than Being Alive. Yep. Can you tell by the title of the album that they are kind of bummers? But that's why you listen to Bayside. That's why you listen to this kind of stuff. And it's just the right mix of aggression, of punk, of emotion, and of technical proficiency and songwriting and of everything. If you are into punk rock and into sad boy music, it's incredible. That is, I believe, my most listened to album of the year. There are worse things than being alive. If I look solely on Apple Music, that was my most played album. So there you go. That is my favorite music of 2024. Now, we are talking about the best movies of 2024 if you are sick in the head like me and need therapy. Number 3 for me. I actually, is this 3? Yes, 3. as I am just so far off mic, this makes no sense. Number 3 for me is Point Break. And the reason I like this is I just like 90s movies. I like action movies. I love Keanu Reeves' chase scenes that end in him firing a gun into the air while screaming, "Ah!" And here. And Point Break is a mixture of all those things. It's 90s, it's action movies, throw in the beach, throw in some skydiving and some surfing, throw in some bang, 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 ah! It's incredible. It's so good that Nick Frost and Simon Pegg and, oh gosh, what's his name? Edgar Wright referenced it in Hot Fuzz. That was a point. Well, I guess it wasn't a storyline or anything. It was just a recurring reference in the movie. It's that influential. It's that good. Number 2 was a gift from Soundspeed's RoboCop on 4K. This is awesome and gruesome. It's an 80s action sci-fi movie, and the special effects on it are amazing. The practical effects on it are amazing. I find the story really interesting. I love the idea of cyborgs. Is that what they would be? Cyborgs. I think so. That would be the proper term. I love the story, and it is also hilarious. One of the best things is the over-the-top gore, the over-the-top violence, which will be a recurring thing with pick number 1. When Ed 209, is that the name, comes in and just blows away the boardroom director or whatever, it is crazy, and it just keeps going. When Murph gets taken down, it is over the top. You think it's going to stop, it keeps going, and it goes to the absurd point where you start laughing. And then they have I'd Buy That for $1, which always makes me laugh. Why, I don't know, but it's funny to me. And number 1, my favorite movie of the year, says a lot about me. It is Terrifier 3. This movie is not for everybody. I have said a lot about it, and I really wish my physical copy was here. I pre-ordered the 3 4K UHD set from Australia. It was supposed to be here before Christmas. It's not. I wish it was here. I wanted to watch it, but it had a relatively low budget of around $2 million, which is a lot of money. But for a movie of this caliber, with the effects at this caliber, $2 million is incredibly low. And the box office on this thing, I think they're approaching $100 million, which is amazing. I love that they stayed true to their roots. They turned down a lot of money from bigger studios so that they could release it how they wanted. And they made the right choice because they are making so much money. Good for them. Love to see these types of people succeed who just say, no thanks, all the establishment. I will do what I want my own way. And people accept it, love it, support it. And oh, it's so good. A lot of people do think of this as just torture porn or over-the-top gore for the sake of gore, and kind of. There is a lot of gore for this, maybe not for the sake of gore, but for the sake of, let's see how far we can push these practical effects. And that's what's so cool about a lot of these horror films, a lot of these practical effect intensive movies. How are they going to be able to accomplish some of these incredibly disturbing scenes with practical effects with a very limited budget? So that is one of the things that I love about it. But I also really appreciate the storyline that we have been drip fed for 3 movies. I need to know more. I need to know more about the characters, the backstory, all of that. But I am glad that there is a story, and it isn't just a poorly thought out, here's a bunch of crazy kills. If you don't watch it, you will think, oh, it's just a movie with a bunch of crazy kills, because there are a bunch of crazy kills with a bunch of gore, a bunch of violence, all that. That is all true, but there is a storyline tying all the movies together, and it is well done and very intriguing. I need to know what comes next. The thing that ties all these three movies together, which are very, very different, is they are some of the only movies that I wanted to rewatch almost immediately. I finished watching them and thought, ooh, that was a lot of fun. I want to watch that again. So there you go. Those are my 3 favorite movies of 2024. What were some of yours? Did you have any movie that you saw that blew your mind, that you loved, or did nothing stand out to you? Now let us jump to the best YouTubers of 2024, according to a YouTuber. Myself. No, I would never do that. I hate myself and all that I do. The first thing I need to say is all of the audio YouTubers. Audio YouTube, at least the audio capture side of YouTube, I don't really listen to a lot of headphones or preamps or headphone preamps or anything. But as far as audio capture, I still love this side of YouTube. The people who work in it, the people who make videos and share their passion are incredible. So I love being on this side of YouTube. They are all some of my favorites. I love watching them after I do my own reviews. I will not watch them prior to doing my own. I could also just easily include a bunch of podcasts, because that really is what I watch a lot of. Story Wars, Kill Tony, Being Ian with Jordan, Stand Up on the Spot, and Adam Ray doing Dr. Phil. That's what I watch way too much of, because it makes me laugh, and as things get stressful, I need to laugh. I like a lot of stuff, but the algorithm has kind of been off for me this year. The algorithm has not known what to give me. A few that stood out, but not like I need to watch every single video, were Last Movie Standing, who is an independent filmmaker. His videos look good, they sound great. He talks about physical media collecting. He does side-by-side comparisons of DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K releases so we can see what the different transfers look like, which is super interesting. Steve-O32 Drums is a really fun channel. It's the old drummer from Sum 41. He is just a really likable guy. He talks about stories, then plays some drums, and he is a good drummer. So that is fun. And a very funny guy. You can tell why they got famous with DVDs showing off their personalities, because they are very funny people. Also, Nicholas Garofalo, who is a skateboarder who does minimalist content. And there's one thing he does every single video that just makes me laugh. At the beginning of his videos, he says something like, if you enjoy the video, make sure to smash that like button and let's get on, something like that. And every single video, the pause gets longer and longer. And I think it's up to something like 30 seconds, and it cracks me up every single time, even though I know exactly what's going to happen. But that should technically kill his videos. It's 30 seconds of nothing. So he must have been building up this really amazing amount of goodwill with his audience to get them to stick around for 30 seconds at the beginning of his video with dead silence as he stares into the lens and checks his watch. It's crazy to do that at the beginning of your video, and it makes me laugh every time. I also like Time Drops, G-Shock High Fashion, because I love G-Shocks, and I was trying not to buy any watches this year. It kind of failed, but I did a decent job. So I just like watching, oh, what new G-Shocks came out? Cool. I won't be buying that. But the YouTube algo this year, as I mentioned, has been kinda not doing a great job. I don't know how or why, but it started pushing a lot of dating content to me. And I was curious, what is online dating content like on YouTube? And the conclusion I came up with is, oh wow, there's a lot of bitterness and hatred and disdain for the opposite sex. These people say they want to date the opposite sex, but there's such a hatred, such a deep-seated loathing for the opposite sex that I am just left wondering, why would you want to date them? You seem to hate them so much. Why would you even want to date them? It just seems counterintuitive. So I don't understand that entire side of YouTube. It's been interesting to see YouTube just trying to shove it down my throat. Hey, here's a video hating men. Hey, here's a video hating women. Now get out there and go start dating. What? That makes no sense whatsoever. I guess that, you know what? That makes perfect sense. It just clicked for me. The content creators, actually, it does make sense. YouTube would push this because who watches less YouTube? Somebody who is in a happy, healthy relationship who spends their time with a significant other. How do we make each other happy? What can we do together? Will we go out and go on a date, go on an adventure? That person isn't watching YouTube. Oh my, hang on a second. That person is not on YouTube. They're not watching YouTube. The person who is watching YouTube is somebody who is single, alone, angry, and miserable. And these videos will make you that if you buy into what they're saying. So YouTube has a direct motivation, a direct incentive to push these videos to people. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It just clicked for me. And the content creators, same thing, same incentive structure. Make these people angry and single, and they won't be out and about with people. They will be sitting at home. Gosh, I'm so bitter and angry. I hate the opposite sex. Here's a video telling me how bad the opposite sex is. I'm gonna watch that. Just get angry. So they have an incentive. Oh my gosh. It makes so much sense. It just clicked for me. Okay, we're not in the conspiracy corner, so the tinfoil hat has to go away as I am off camera. I am off microphone. This is top tier podcast content. Don't you forget it. Oh my gosh. You know, oh god. Oh my gosh, what is happening? This is what 10 years of experience will get you. Now I'm out of breath. Let me take a sip of water and then we'll move on. Now let us talk about what I've been testing, and I am on a Neumann Neumann. That's a reference to something you haven't seen yet. It is the Neumann TLM107, a multi-pattern studio condenser microphone. I am on the hypercardioid pattern, 40 Hz high-pass filter, no pad. I am then running it into the Neve Portico 5017 preamp with a bit of compression. I didn't realize exposing conspiracy theories would make me get out of breath so much. Man, that's a lot of work. How does Alex Jones do it, being as large as he is? Anyway, I am on the TLM107. I ordered this microphone. It cost $1,500. But then I found it on sale for $1,200, canceled that first order, saved $300, and then ordered the 18i20 4th gen. Yahoo! Still a lot of money though. Still sucked to spend that much, but I have been wanting to try the more modern Neumanns, hello Neumann, for quite a while, so this is a lot of fun. The UI is not the best. It's a D-pad on the back of it to change the polar pattern, the pad, and the high-pass filter. It works. Once it's set up for somebody like me who does VO and isn't constantly like climbing up and changing room mics or anything, I think it's fine. I do prefer the switches, the physical switches on something like the U87. A lot more intuitive, more tactile. You can actually feel the change. You know exactly where you are. One thing I did notice about this is it picks up a lot of noise. So if you tap the cable, if you get the non-studio set, which has a firm microphone clip, you may be running into some issues. So I am glad I sprung for the studio set with the shock mount, because the shock mount is pretty effective as long as the shock isn't making it through the cable. Pretty effective. So that's what you have been listening to. What do you think of it? I did a test recording and I noticed the S's were kind of sharp on the cardioid pattern, but there's a big bump in the treble on the cardioid. So on hypercardioid, it's a bit more natural. Hopefully that tames it a little bit more. That's it for WIBT, what I've been testing. What you had to say, I didn't have time to pull any. I am sorry. We will have to visit that in 2 weeks. Last thing we're doing is value for value, because this is a V for V podcast. What that means, I don't put this behind a paywall. I just put the show out there, and if you get any value out of it, I ask you return that in whatever way you are able, whether it be time, talent, or treasure. The financial support helps keep the lights on, all 4 of them right now, keep the microphones running, keep the hosting up. And if you don't want to or are unable to support it financially, just sharing the show is super helpful, because podcasts are hard to grow. They don't do terribly well in the algorithm because it's 30 plus minutes long and I cover 7 different topics. So the algo has no idea what to do with it, which is why I started the Clips channel. But share it with a friend if you know anybody who would get a benefit from it, who may enjoy it. That really is super helpful as well. First up, we have $5 from the Raphael Cruz podcast, and he says, I got the EV RE320 thanks to your reviews. I've been so close to upgrading, but I'm so glad that I haven't. Raphael, thank you very much for the $5, and thank you for the kind words. I am so glad that you found a microphone that works for you, and you haven't given in to FOMO, you haven't given into gas. You have just been using the tool that you have to get the job done and making something. That is what these microphones are for. Let me reiterate that, because I get called out on this a lot. I think people are just trying to be funny, but I want to reiterate this. If I didn't review microphones, I would not have bought any of this, any of these. Before I started reviewing microphones, I had the SM7B. To this day, that is still one of my favorite microphones, and I still love how I sound on it. If I didn't review microphones, I wouldn't constantly change the mic on this podcast. I wouldn't constantly buy new mics. I only do it because my job on YouTube is to help people make informed decisions in selecting the microphone. So do not look at what I do. Do not look at the constant change of microphones and think, I'm going to do that too. Unless you want to and you have the disposable income, even if you I'm not your dad. I can't tell you what to do. My advice would be, though, get a tool that accomplishes the task and make stuff with it. Don't throw money down the drain, constantly changing, unless that is part of the fun of the hobby for you, just having different tools to play with. Thank you very much, Raphael, for the support, and good on you for not giving in to gas. Next, I am a child. We have $25 from MEI Studio New York, the Mad Lad, the legend, Pags. He says, happy holidays and thanks for the kind words as always. Appreciate you and all you do over the course of the year. I would prefer having a video that lasts 10 years and is going to genuinely help someone out over getting a flash in the pan that is forgotten about 10 days later. If you make 10 of those 10-year videos, you can still have your 1 million views. Shut up, car! Shut up! It's weird that there's a car revving their engine outside in this weather. It's way too snowy, yet they're speeding. Crazy. Pags, thank you very much for the $25, and thank you for the kind words. I had not considered just make 10 videos that help 100,000 people or get 100,000 views, and you're in the same spot. Of course, the videos that we are making, I think, take a lot more time and effort and money than a lot of the videos on YouTube that may be a flash in a pan. So it's easier said than done, but I agree with you completely. I would also prefer to have a video that genuinely helps people over 10 years as opposed to, I guess, kind of like a bag of chips, but a YouTube version of that. I'm going to eat some salt and vin chips because they're delicious, and then you just feel like garbage. Of course, there is really popular stuff on YouTube that is also well done, informative, and educational, and it's not just garbage, but I think you get the point. I agree. 10 videos that help 100,000 people over 10 years would be awesome. That's much better for me as well than 1 million views in a week that's forgotten. And finally, we have €25 from TechMed Rainer Richter. I have never gone into that register for his voice before. That was weird. I felt like Mrs. Doubtfire. What's something that Mrs. Doubtfire says? Sorry, first, Raina says, Danke. Raina, thank you so much for the €25. And Mrs. Doubtfire would say, hello! Well, hello! She would say that. It was a drive-by fruiting. She would say that too. What else would she say? Raina, thank you so much for thank you for the continued support. I really do appreciate it. Your support, Pag's support, and this week, Raphael's support really does help keep the show going, keep the bills paid, the lights on, and it really is appreciated. It helps keep the show ad-free. So if you enjoy this podcast, not having ads in it, it is thanks to the support of these amazing people and the amazing people who support the show each week because it is value for value. If you want to support the show financially, you can go to podcastage.com/support or just use the super thanks on YouTube and that will get to me as well. It is deeply appreciated. That is it for V4V, and that is going to wrap up this week's podcast. Thank you so much for watching this year. I really do appreciate you. As I close out every single show, I love pointing out and reminding myself that there are about 1 billion things vying for your attention each week. So the fact that you choose to spend any amount of time watching or listening to this really does mean the world to me. So thank you so much. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I will be off next week because I am going to be celebrating the holiday, spending time with friends and family, and not sat in a studio. But I'll be back the week after that, ranting and raving and talking about how 2024 was yet another failure. I'm going to try to meet one of those goals partially. 33% of the way there, maybe. Kinda, sorta. I don't know. We'll see. Thank you so much. Have an amazing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Christmas, Merry Christmas, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next Sunday, I won't be back, but I'll be back the following Sunday. I love you. Bye-bye. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer is Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.